and finding success. And we thought, okay, if we, with no material science background whatsoever, can make something that looks like plastic made from seaweed and plants, then definitely if we hired someone from the plastic industry, we could create something. The beauty of working in a space that's driven by purpose is that people feel the call and they want to answer the call.
Welcome to Kudos NPM, a podcast exploring the future and impact of design innovation as they intersect with technology, art, and business. I'm your host, John Kudos. Today, I'm going to chat with an amazing creative entrepreneur who, as a young student, had this ambitious idea to solve our seemingly unsolvable dilemma with plastic waste. She went on to create a trailblazing startup that gives us an extremely viable solution to this global problem. So Julia Marsh, welcome to the AMPM podcast.
Thank you, John. I'm so happy to be here.
It's such a pleasure to see you again. So before we go too far, I want to ask, what time is it over there?
It is 3:11 p.m. in California.
In California. Okay, it's 6 p.m. here, 6:11 p.m. And it's almost time for dinner for me. And I want to show you actually what my wife made me for dinner tonight. Can you see this?
You lucky man.
So
glorious.
Doesn't that onigiri look awesome? Just let me see if I can get that. See?
This is making me want some seaweed. I want to chat about that. It's appropriate.
See, a lot of people don't realize how amazing seaweed is as an ingredient, as a material. So I'm glad we have a chance to talk about that today.
We're going to go deep on seaweed. You were a part of my seaweed journey, which I think most people don't know. So
I actually want to know the actual story or actual perspective from your side, because I know. Let me rewind this a little bit, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I want our audience is quite diverse here, and some don't really know, design. Some don't really know about the business side of things or entrepreneurship. So if you don't mind, for those who don't know who you are and what you do, can you say a few things about yourself?
Happily. So my background is in design. I spent about a decade working with brands and design studios, including Kudos, as well as technology companies building brand and packaging systems. I love design. I love making things beautiful. I also love materials, and I love systems of circularity where the materials that we use actively participate in loops of circularity. We're not creating waste. We're keeping materials in use. We're not creating pollution. And that led me to build Sway, which is the company that started, its inception started while I was working for Kudos.
Oh, I actually didn't know about that. So interesting to just rewind in history and actually hear the story again. Now, we met, I think, for the very first time in Monterey, California. We were at the conference together.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
I do.
So
You're in my hometown. Yeah, that's crazy. Wow.
Oh, is that actually your hometown?
Yeah, it's where I grew up.
Oh my God, I had no idea. So I remember, because this is years back, right? Plastic bags were less common in California than it was in New York. Mm-hmm. I think New York sort of followed the trail and added the necessary regulations to reduce the use of plastic bags. I think when we were chatting, I think you mentioned that you were on your way to Bali actually for research.
Yes. So I was in grad school and had become obsessed with new materials. I was in grad school for design and wanted to find a way of pairing my love for design with a new system of materiality. And I had looked at all the alternatives that existed on the market already. Like, you got great paper-based systems. There's innovative materials that are made from nature, like corn and potato and sugarcane. And I thought, I want to take this further with my research. I want to look at materials that are overlooked and underappreciated. And seaweed is this gorgeous, abundant, diverse, readily available material that hasn't been used in alternative materials at scale. And that had become the centerpiece of my graduate thesis. And so when we met, I was preparing to go to Bali to visit seaweed farms, and you're a part of this story. You were so nice to give me a job.
Oh no. I don't know that was nice. I think, I think the stars aligned at that time,
The
I
stars
think
aligned.
you were on your way to New York as well for SVA, right? School of Visual Art.
Yeah.
Maybe why don't you talk about SVA a little bit?
So I started my master's in design at the School of Visual Arts in 2017. And this was a program centered on the designer as entrepreneur. The whole idea being designers are really well qualified to start businesses because they make impossible futures visible. Designers, better than anybody, can tell a good story and show people like what the future looks like. And I took that really seriously. I don't know that the program like actually wanted people to start businesses, but I thought if I'm going to dedicate 2 years to this thesis, I want it to have real impact. I want it to actually turn into real business. And in my case, it did.
Well, the program is called, and is it design entrepreneurship, right?
Designer as entrepreneur and author.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. I think Steve Heller is the chair at the time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then I was doing research earlier. I think you listed that when you were at SVA, you were the valedictorian as well.
I was valedictorian. I was, out of a class of 17. I was working hard, John. There was a lot of late, unglamorous nights. There was a lot of all-nighters. I was obsessed with doing the absolute best, making the absolute most of my time in New York.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think when you go to school, you buy into this idea, right, that you design can do a lot of things, right, in the world. And I mean, I think a lot of designers, young and old, have that belief as well. I mean, I believe that too, right? But I think the impact that designers bring to the table vary, right? Depending on the field, depending on what practice you're doing. But I think looking back, I think you were able to make the most out of that program and actually started this whole journey with Sway at the program, right?
Yeah, it's a golden ticket. Having being a design student, being any kind of student, is a golden ticket to meet anybody, to go anywhere, and to be received with kind of open arms or an open-mindedness. And so I really took advantage of the golden ticket and used it to meet all kinds of amazing designers. It got me a foot in the door at all kinds of incredible design studios, but also people like outside the design world, people working on material innovation, people in the CPG, the consumer brands world, people in Seaweed after a while, people in, all kinds of categories. And as a result, I left grad school with this beautiful network of people who were interested in what I was doing and wanted me to succeed.
I want to circle back to that because you listed so many different expertise, right? Having to come together to actually make things happen here. But when you were in SVA or before that, like I'm curious, like when did you actually thought of the idea of using Seaweed?
Happened in school. The journey was being in the context of SVA. I had the freedom to really go deep on all these alternative materials that were being used in packaging. And I had set criteria in my research. I wanted the material that I was going to focus on to have this regenerative quality. I wanted it to do more than just sustain things the way that it was. Mm-hmm. I wanted a material that actually replenished life. So what source materials meet that criteria? there's mushrooms and there's agricultural waste and there's I don't know, there's different types of plant protein, there's trees, and there's seaweed. And seaweed, I completely latched onto. I'm from California. I love the ocean. And it sent me on this just kind of obsessive pursuit of wanting to learn everything about seaweed's potential to replace plastic.
I think seaweed was like the last thing that come to mind when it comes to, like cool materials to work with. Now, I think you're just giving it a new definition. I feel like everyone's talking about or thinking about mushroom and hemp. I think seaweed is just the underdog,
Oh, I think we're in a seaweed renaissance. Seaweed can do so much. You're eating it for dinner right now, but it's also, making its way into a lot of the cosmetics that you use on a daily basis. It's in your donut glaze. It's like used as a foam stabilizer in beer. So it's secretly a part of your everyday. And then there are all kinds of material innovators using it to make replacements for like plastic-free replacements for fabric. There's innovators using seaweed to help reduce methane emissions in livestock. There's seaweed that's being used as like a construction ingredient. It's a biostimulant. It creates healthier crops, and it can replace plastic. So I feel like there's a lot of excitement around seaweed right now.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot to actually dig deeper into with seaweed. Now, do you feel like when you were developing the idea, you were in school, right? This was a master's program for you. Do you feel like you met or ran into mentors that really influence your thinking and approach?
Definitely. The faculty within SVA, the MFA program for design, was outstanding, and that's the reason I chose SVA over any other program. I had access not just to Stephen Heller, who was the co-chair at the time, but also Stefan Sagmeister, Elise Feely, these design icons, the folks at Pentagram, as well as, my design icon, Brian Collins. And
there you go. Yeah.
Brian really was an incredible, and is an incredible mentor and now a friend, who gave to me what I hoped to get out of grad school, which was, one, a thicker skin. He would tell me the truth as it really was, and it enabled me to just be, it gave me some of the qualities I needed and really rely on as a leader. Just some toughness, to say it how it is. And also he gave me a perspective on my place in the design world. And I'm really grateful for that. So Brian Collins, huge mentor. And the other half of Collins is Leland Mashmeyer, who at the time had moved on from founding Collins and was working at Chobani as the chief brand officer. And he was also a mentor to me through the foundations of Building Sway, and ultimately became my co-founder in this venture.
Oh, wow. Wow, everything just comes together. That's so
really
amazing.
Weird. Yeah, in retrospect, it's a straight line, but I would never think at the time that things would play out this way at all.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with this dream, right? Or the vision that you have about doing something about the world's problem here, right? And I think oftentimes we think about plastic problems as how do you freaking even begin to solve that, because it's just everywhere. And it's like ingrained in everyone's habit every day, It's so. All right, let's latch on to that idea. We'll come back to it. I want to maybe switch the conversation here to how you started the company, because designers tend to, love to think creatively, come up with cool ideas, right? And then I've seen so many designers fail in their startup ventures, because there's no, now that I'm looking back and, as a business owner myself, I sometimes think about how naive I was, years ago when I have cool ideas and thought about how to make it happen, right? I think there's always many components that actually need to work together. So I want to hear from you and your journey and how you started the company. Did you run into any issues? Did you have moments where you actually figure out certain things that you shouldn't have done, or what you should be doing?
Well, first, I would highlight that I'm on the journey still. So the definition of a successful startup is, a sliding scale. But Sway has been successful. We've won global awards. I've raised nearly $9 million. We have, this incredible network of customers. So we're definitely on the right track. We're getting some things right, but I wouldn't say that that we have achieved success. It's a journey. The most critical part for me, just in taking the leap to start Sway in the first place, because there was a lot of, I would say, true fear about what it meant to be an entrepreneur, was having people with me who were very good at the things I'm not. And that I wouldn't have been courageous enough to take the leap. Frankly, I didn't envision myself as a business owner or as an entrepreneur. I wouldn't have had the courage without my two co-founders. One of whom is Leland Mashmeyer, who is a seasoned business and design leader who's worked at, Fortune 500 companies and has seen all kinds of businesses rise and fall and can provide the insight needed. And then my co-founder, Matt, who is Sway's chief operations officer and also my life partner. And without him, truly, Sway would not exist. He does all the things I have the fundamental aspects of business that are, they're not what makes it on the billboard, but they're absolutely fundamental. It's HR, it's legal, it's paperwork, it's admin, it's did we sign that contract on time? It's do we have space to work in? These fundamental aspects of building a business, which don't fall within the obvious purview of my experience as a designer or a storyteller.
Did you have to ask or beg for people to actually join you in this venture?
No, not at all. No, it was the beauty of working in a space that's driven by purpose is that people feel the call and they want to answer the call. So everyone on my team came to us not because they're like, oh, I need a job. It was, I care about the plastic problem, or I love the ocean. What can I do to help protect it? And so for my co-founders, certainly the call was very strong. For Matt, it wasn't me begging him to join me. It was that he was with me in Indonesia in the water, visiting the seaweed farms, could see the potential, saw the opportunity for impact and for social good and for environmental change, and said, oh my God, we got to build this together. So yeah, I would recommend, if you're building a company, you should probably be led by a strong purpose.
No, I believe that. I think there needs to be a purpose in everything that we do, right? And I want to maybe dig a little deeper in your journey to Bali. So you and Matt traveled together, and I remember you were working with me at that time, and I had mentioned that you want to go to Indonesia together. But you had your agenda, so I want to hear what happened when you were there.
It's so fortuitous that you and I met and that you were willing to give me a design job, because it couldn't have been more perfect. Like in retrospect, truly the stars couldn't have aligned better. Matt was brought to Indonesia for work with the USAID. He was doing sustainable development work in a traditional batik indigo operation. And he was trying to support a local community's efforts to make their process more sustainable. And then at the same time, I was working for you in New York, and I knew you had offices in Indonesia. And I thought, man, you seem okay with the time difference. Maybe I could just go to Bali and be with Matt. And while we're there, we can visit the seaweed farms that he's told me are just around the corner.
Oh, wow.
And so it truly, it couldn't have been more ideal. I spent 2 months in Indonesia and got to visit seaweed farms while working for Kudos, and it helped put the puzzle together for me where both of us could see seaweed farming has been around for centuries. It's really simple. It's a reliable source of employment for coastal communities all over the world, but in Indonesia, it's like a centuries-old practice. Mm-hmm. And it's just lines and little raffia ties, and the seaweed grows, and then you give it a haircut, and it regenerates every 2 or 3 weeks. And we got to meet farmers, and man, it was the most inspiring experience, and it was really only possible because of John Kudos.
You're giving me more credit than necessary there. But that was just like listening to a lecture about seaweed farming, which I have no clue about, so I have no idea. I mean, simplicity sometimes is the best thing, right? I mean, the gift that nature gives us is amazing. Mm-hmm. I struggle with my backyard because all these weeds come back, so quickly. I went away for 3 weeks and my backyard is just covered in weeds.
Oh, no. It's supposed to be meditative, taking the weeds out, tending to them.
Yes, I have to meditate to find the time to do it.
There we go.
So, I mean, I know there's so much more from that journey, what you learned from that trip to what you're able to create now. And earlier you mentioned you had to work with so many different people who know what they're doing, who you have no idea, right, about. Mm-hmm. So I know some of them are scientists or people working in the lab, right? Mm-hmm. Others are on the field actually farming the thing. And then on the other side, you have to actually present this, right, to the larger mass market to actually understand that this is an amazing thing. So how did you actually put all these pieces together? Like, how did you get there?
Started with the supply chain. So looking at, I mean, that's the beauty of being a design-founded organization, is you look at a system first, and then you piece together all of the puzzle. So really, Matt and I and Leland looked at the system and said, what are the fundamental pieces of this whole value chain that have to work in order for our solution to thrive? And it started with the supply chain, started with sourcing. How does seaweed grow? Where is it available? Is there enough of it? If we're really successful, is there anything bad that happens to the ocean? Just doing all that foundational research by meeting with marine biologists and ocean farmers and people who have been in the seaweed industry for decades. There's so much wisdom from all these ocean people. And by the way, never met a seaweed person I didn't like. They're all great people. I highly recommend.
Okay, so if you're on Tinder, you should say, I love seaweeds.
Swipe right or you swipe. I don't know which direction you swipe, but swipe yes to seaweed people. But yeah, so that was the foundation. And actually, I won't go on too much of a tangent. I'll give you the simple answer, and then there is a tangent, which is Matt and I went on this big adventure to actually visit seaweed farms throughout Central and South America, and we drove. But I can pause. I can save that for later. But yeah, the first step was make sure that the sourcing makes sense, build out that foundation. Then we built out the foundations of a prototype, literally by baking products in our kitchen and in our garage, ordering seaweed off the internet and just looking at...
in your garage, you did it yourself?
Yeah, just initially mixing together seaweed, using recipes we found on YouTube, and finding success. And we thought, okay, if we, with no material science background whatsoever, can make something that looks like plastic made from seaweed and plants, then definitely if we hired someone from the plastic industry, we could create something real that
It
could
must have been
actually.
really expensive though to hire someone with that background, right?
Indeed, yes. Well, it was, yeah, part of our so we were able to bootstrap um, up until the point of actually making the product. And yes, to hire someone from the plastics industry, that's a full-blown salary. You don't find a volunteer to do that. Um, so we applied to the Beyond the Bag Challenge, which was organized by Target and Walmart and CVS. And they were looking for replacement for retail bags. Because like you mentioned, like all these bag bans are going out. Nobody likes plastic. There are literally billions of retail bags used every year. And they're used for 12 seconds, usually. And then they go in the trash because they can't be recycled. So we applied to this and we said, hey, we've got this concept. I had all my thesis research. We had met with all these farmers. We had a prototype we made in our kitchen. We said, we think we can change the world with seaweed. And we won. And the winnings from that prize allowed us to hire our first materials engineer out of the plastic industry. He quit his job. After 2 weeks, he moved across the country for us, packed up his car and drove from Massachusetts to California and set up our first lab in our garage. And he's still with us today, 3.5 years later.
So that sounded like a roadblock, right, at first, but then you were able to get around it by actually getting that or winning the challenge, right? I'm sure there are many more. What keeps you going? I know you're not at the end of the journey. I know this is still, a lot of learning curves and everything, but what keeps you going?
We have a patented product that works, and we're currently in the process of scaling it up. And brands really want it. Big fashion brands like J. Crew and Burton have said, if you make a ton of this, we'd like to use it. And so I think what keeps me going is this momentum of knowing that as we grow, our potential for impact also grows. And that it's not just a lab experiment anymore. It's not a dream. It's real. It's tangible. And if we're successful, our materials would make their way into like the everyday. They would be a part of your life. They would be a part of my sister's life, be a part of my aunt's life. It's not just like a contained abstract idea. It's like plastic and packaging is a fundamental part of our everyday. So I love that. It's like our success means impact for everyone.
I find funny things sometimes when I do my research, and I learned that you were in an a cappella group for 4 years.
I didn't tell you that when we were in the studio.
I don't know. I feel like we missed this chance to actually go karaokeing.
I would have been down. I was in a cappella for 4 years. I'd always been in singing groups in high school, and that carried into college. And it was like being in a sorority, except, the theme was we're singing all the time. And many of my best friends came from that group.
I can imagine, because I was, I was like the bass of an a cappella group myself years ago.
Were you? Oh my God. Missed opportunity.
No, I'm not kidding. It was a casual group, only lasted a few months, but it was fun.
Oh my gosh, John, I love that. So I feel like a cappella, I don't think that many people knew about it until the movie Pitch Perfect came out.
Oh,
you seen it?
yes, that's fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, it came out while I was in college in a women's a cappella group, so it was so relevant. And I want listeners to know that what you see in Pitch Perfect is accurate to the experience of being an all-women's a cappella group.
I think the reason I brought this up is, I think when you're in a cappella group, everybody sort of have a role to be in harmony, right? And I think about that, like when you run that team and everybody has these different jobs and kind of levels of expertise, you kind of have to like get everybody to be on the same page. Everyone needs to be pitch perfect, right?
Oh, they do.
And
Yes.
I want to draw a connection to that from music, working together, and I think you mentioned regeneration, circularity, there's so much of this that to me makes sense together, like you want to approach the world the every day that you have, and you're dealing with all these issues. And I want to actually hear from you these two hot terms: regeneration, circularity, right? Where does Sway fit in this conversation right now?
Sway was founded on the concept of regenerative design. The idea being that our products and our business practices and our value chain should all leave things better than we found it. And at every step of the value chain, in one way or another, that's true. So by sourcing seaweed as our primary feedstock, as our hero ingredient, it's regenerating the ocean. As seaweed's growing, it's filtering excess nutrients, it's providing habitat for biodiverse life, it's sequestering carbon, it's producing oxygen, it's doing all this good just by growing. And then as it's being farmed, it's supporting coastal communities as a source of employment. That's regenerative. And then we're processing it and turning it into a material that replaces plastic. That's regenerative because we're not creating plastic waste. We're not increasing reliance on fossil fuels. It's also accessible to people, which I view as a regenerative design practice, like making people feel better than they were before and not bringing toxins into their lives. Mm-hmm. And then after the material is used, it goes back into the soil. It's home compostable. So it's going to decompose on a rapid timeline, feeding soil health, encouraging composting behavior. Soil is like the source of all the food that we eat. So from end to end, you have this story of regeneration, replenishing life that fits into a system of biological circularity.
It's really amazing to think about this, because I think what you said earlier about recommending to, if you start a company, make it be purpose-led, right? I think that's sort of the philosophy, right? The belief that everyone can buy into, that keeps everyone together. And that's the harmony that I was imagining, It's almost like you're singing together because you want this to work.
I think that's a wonderful metaphor. And for a lot of people, embodying principles of circularity isn't just about participating in, like responsible production and consumption. It's also just more efficient in terms of time, in terms of money. Being circular, having a circular mindset is less wasteful. It feels nice to not be wasteful. Mm-hmm. So it's about like the appropriate use of materials. It's just like practical. I feel oftentimes sustainable products and businesses are sidelined as an afterthought or a category, but it's the way that all business should be done. All business should be regenerative. All business should be circular, because it just makes sense.
Yeah. Not only it makes sense, it's good for everyone, right?
And it's good for everybody. Yeah, everybody wins.
Now, we're both designers, so I kind of know or have a hint of why you named the company Sway and why the logo looks like that. Can you talk a little bit about how the name came about and the branding component?
I feel like you have to tell me what you think first, and then I'll tell you the answer.
There you go. Well, I think when I first heard the name Sway, it's kind of like you're trying to sway people to, join the movement. That's one perception that I had. And of course, yes, it's a seaweed. So yes, it sways in the water, literally.
Well, you're correct, John. But there's a third definition. Actually, I feel people do not note that sway is influence. Yeah, like you hold sway or you're swaying people away from plastics. So thank you for acknowledging that. And yes, seaweed sways underwater. But the formal definition that Brian Collins actually helped me develop was mechanical systems are rigid and unchanging. Sway moves in response to the rhythm of natural cycles. So kind of combining those two pieces of logic to say we need to be adaptive if we're going to solve these really difficult problems.
Beautiful.
It's poetic.
Yes, I think we need that, you know. I think the idea itself is kind of embodied in the name and the way it looks. So you have sort of the baseline to run the business in a way, right?
That's the baseline. But the way that it looks is very intentional. I wanted to create a brand for a materials company where there is a lot of complicated science and there is a lot of, I guess, baggage associated with the legacy industry of packaging that isn't inviting to people. It can feel really confusing or overwhelming. And so the brand is designed with colorful, vibrant hues from the rainbow. It's meant to serve as an invitation. Like, come learn about what we're doing. You're invited. This is for everybody to participate in. It looks a lot like a consumer brand, even though we're B2B. And that's intentional. Like, our community ultimately is what will enable the change. And that theory has been correct because we have a network on Instagram that's over 135K. And this community is filled with people who are super motivated to buy more sustainable products, to influence the brands they love, to switch away from plastic, to advocate on behalf of oceans. Like, this community is also a talent pool. I've found multiple Sway teammates off of Instagram. And it keeps us in check. It's like this community gives us really, really valuable feedback on what they want to see happen in our products and what values are important to them. So it keeps us like relevant and informed about what people in the world want from this company.
Well, that comes full circle, doesn't it? It's regenerative for you as well.
It does indeed. It's very nourishing.
Yeah. So I think, suffice to say, I think you kind of started a movement there.
Oh, part of a larger movement. There are so many cool, innovative materials, and it's a rising tides lift all boats situation. Like, yeah, we have so many friends, both in seaweed world and material innovation world and circularity and design world, that are all kind of lifting each other up simultaneously.
You have a ton of followers on Instagram. You have a lot of brands who are really interested in the product. Now, how can people or companies join this movement or partner with Sway?
I visit at Sway the Future on any social platform, but primarily Instagram or LinkedIn. We have a great newsletter that's very cute and won't make your inbox cluttered.
I just got one. Like I can approve that. Yes.
So that's what I would recommend. And then our website is swaythefuture.com, where you can learn more about us.
Is there anything exciting coming up with Sway that you can reveal?
Yes, there is. We're currently scaling up our product to be available to anyone in a public-facing marketplace with our distribution partners at Eco Enclose. So this will be coming in the fall, but you or I or anybody can just go online and order Sway packaging, which I'm very excited about.
So, Julia, it's been a pleasure talking to you again. Yeah.
That was a little bit one-sided. I still haven't learned what's going on in your life at all. I was told that this podcast was a conversation.
It is a conversation. Is there anything you want to ask me?
What has been the most impactful project you've worked on in the past year?
I am working on one, actually, developing a product, which is why I feel like I need to come visit. Great. Yes. But outside of that, I think, we've done some pro bono work with, nonprofits around renewable energy, and also this organization called Stand with Asian Americans, right? So this is directly responding to Stop Asia Hate. And we've done a few exciting exhibitions, including a few at Poster House Museum in New York.
Nice.
Yeah.
How cool.
So, Julia, it's been a pleasure talking with you today, and I'm so grateful for how much you've shared from just your experience and how you got here. I'm sure this is always life's work, work in progress, and always learning and how to do things better and bigger. But in this podcast, as you know, we try to interview people from different time zones and to just get insights on what they're up to. And you being a formally trained designer who actually started a business and used technology to actually, do everything right. I feel like it's just the right material for the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's a total pleasure. And I'm excited to hear what people think. Welcome the feedback.
Okay, so thanks everyone. I hope to see you in the next episode. Just remember to follow us, subscribe, and like. Thank you, Julia, for being our guest today. And I'm going to bite my onigiri just because it's been sitting here and I really cannot wait.